join us. Is that okay?
Mayor, we need about 30 to 60 seconds to get on YouTube. Oh, it looks like we're on. Tammy, are we on?
We're on? Okay, great. I'll call this a subcommittee meeting of the Salem Legislative Committee, Salem City Council Legislative Committee to order. President or Bennett.
Hoy.
Okay, and staff to be identified. So why don't we go ahead, Justin, and you kind of give us the report you'd like to give us, and then we can talk about concepts, hopefully as Councilor Anderson is able to join us.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council and staff. Good to see everybody. Once again, wish we were in person. Hopefully at some point in the future, we can do that. As for my report today, not a lot brewing since we just hit Labor Day. And as everybody knows, political season really starts right after Labor Day, whether that's looking at legislative days or whether that's going into the February session and then the May primary and then the general election of November 2022. So everybody's kind of back to school, everybody's kind of back to work. And really the big focus is redistricting. And so that's on everybody's mind in terms of politics, whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, and looking at how that's going to play out, how those seats are going to look, how that process is going to be. And so the key dates and activities that are happening around that are potentially a special session on the 20th and the 21st. And then that's built around legislative days, which is kind of that normal quarterly period, 22nd, 23rd, and the 24th. So we'll be having conversations with electeds. We've had several conversations with our local electeds, asking about districts, asking about interests, who's within those areas as that process plays out. So we'll keep a close eye on that. And once we know how those lines are going to look and how they're going to impact the city, I think that'll be another discussion, Council and Mr. Mayor, for down the road. So those are the key dates and activities that are coming up in the near future.
Justin,
in terms of today's, I'm sorry, Councilor Hoyt.
Sorry about that. What would be the point of the special session?
Just trying to map out these districts, see if they can come to some kind of terms. And again, I think in this hyper politicized world that we're in, I don't know if that's going to be the case. We've been monitoring those. There's more to come. And again, in my conversations with elected officials, there's always frustration around this and how it maps out because it is so political and it does have such a big impact on who runs, who has the potential to win in certain areas. You guys have been hearing me over the last 4 or 5 years talk about really there's only 4 or 5 competitive seats within the state, right? A couple, 2, 3 in the Senate, 4 or 5 in the House. So it really makes it for some difficult politicking around these redistricting hearings, et cetera. So very political right now. Surprisingly, we were able to, the parties were able to come to terms the last time we went through this cycle. I don't know if that's going to be the case now because of, again, the hyper politicized environment that we're in, both federal level and the state level. So we'll report more on that when we know.
Have you seen any of the maps yet, Justin? My understanding is there's a couple Democrat and a Republican map. Have you had a chance to look at those yet?
I've glanced a few of them, but again, until this really starts shaking out, I mean, I think it's kind of a futile exercise to sit down and look at those and get really detailed. And the ones I've seen, Mr. Mayor, have not been that detailed. I mean, they haven't been able to sit down and go, oh, this is how Salem's going to cut. This is how, Polk County and Marion County are going to cut. I just haven't seen anything to that level of detail. That's not to say it isn't out there, but I have not specifically been.
If you look at the Committee on OLS and you look at their material, you can go in and look at the actual maps and see the detail level down to the street where they're proposing.
Okay.
And
Councilor Anderson, welcome.
Hey, Councilor.
Thank you. We're just talking about redistricting right now, which is going to be the topic of a potential special session on the 20th and 21st of this month.
Yeah.
Did you have any questions on that, Tom?
Well, I have a comment more than a question. And I've been following this because I applied to be a citizen redistrictor if, in fact, the legislature cannot come up with the solution. And I was told I know by mid-September, and so I guess now mid-September is after the special session, whether I'd be appointed or not. And based on how the criteria they talked about, I think I might have a good chance of being appointed.
Oh, great.
So I'm following it in that way. And just one other thing too, I'm sorry that I was late. It doesn't, somehow none of the cases or none of the council meetings are coming to my phone, even though I've been to IT so many times. And
So our plan is working to keep you.
Yeah. It's like my wife says I have wife block on my phone. No. And right now I have a Zoom meeting on a huge case with somebody you would know, Chris, set for 11:30, and we're in the middle of negotiations. So I asked them to push it back to 11:45. But if I don't get any response, I'll be leaving.
Okay, great. Well, we'll get going. Hopefully we'll be done by then.
Yeah, good.
Okay, very good.
Well,
Anything
thanks,
else,
Mr. Mayor.
Justin,
Yeah, in terms of redistricting, again, how that process plays out, we'll keep an eye on it. Again, we never put a lot of stock in initial discussions and what's happening behind the scenes. It's very political. We kind of let those folks take care of that and figure out what we can in terms of comments. And so if there are any, or we get down to those last things, we can certainly reach out to our delegation and let folks know. But again, it's a very political process and one that I'm not very versed in, especially when if and when it gets to the Secretary of State level. So it's good to hear that Councilor Anderson has the potential to be part of that process if it gets there. And we'll be able to report on that at our next ledge update.
Okay. Anything at all on the congressional district? I mean, are we going to be pretty much still intact with Congressman Schrader, or do you have any concept?
Well, I don't know. And if Councilor Hoy's been paying closer attention, he may be hearing some things, but I just haven't got into that discussion yet, where that other congressional district's going to be.
Sound like Eugene is really putting in its bid
Well, there's a couple of scenarios where Salem gets carved up a little bit. One creates a 6th district out of basically Polk and Yamhill counties and a little bit north. So we would have, depending on which side of the bridge you're on, you'd be in a different congressional district. And then also there's another one, I think, that carves up another part of Salem into another district. Yeah.
I've seen the same thing, Mr. Mayor, as Councilor Hoy has. There's some ones that put Salem in a different district than Schrader is in. And I don't know what the numbers are, but Chris is right. I've seen those kind of maps.
But as a city, we would end up with 2 congressmen.
Potentially, there's a couple of scenarios where that would be the case, yes.
Boy, that'd be very nice.
That would be nice.
Yeah,
I've seen
that
I've
would be
seen
a
it,
real.
as you guys know,
I was
I've seen
hoping
that.
with our growth here that we would see maybe at least one additional House member coming into the city that would be very helpful. And then if we could pick up an additional congressional seat that we share, that would be even better in a lot of ways.
Yeah, the more representation, the better.
Yeah, absolutely.
A couple of the scenarios carve out East Salem into a district, which would be an open district that goes out to Almsville. Another one of them goes up into the canyon, but it carves out all of East Salem into a separate House district.
Is that right? I ran in a district years ago, almost 50 years ago now, that ran from just outside Silverton and Sublimity all the way over to Heppner. That was, and trust me, that was a fascinating district to run in. It was unbelievably huge. It was a gigantic part of the state. I think Heppner was the big city. Actually, it went for, there were some real interesting districts. I had another one, the one I represented ran from the edge of Sandy all the way down to the edge of Eugene. and Springfield. That was another. Some of these can be just god awful districts. They usually carve one of those out. They usually give it to us here in this county, apparently.
So
Okay.
it'll be interesting to see. We will certainly report back, and then that'll really give us a sense of going into next cycle.
Yeah,
How to get strategic around who our delegation is,
yeah.
who are the folks that are going to be in leadership positions, and we'll tie all that together for council and the legislative committee, and really be able to integrate our legislative priorities with those key districts and those key areas in our delegations. So we can start sharing that with them and have that nice little overlay and become way more strategic once we know those lines.
Yeah, boy, as soon as possible. Yeah, that's really to start the conversation. Very good. Okay.
That'd be great. That's it. That's it for a quick ledge update. Of course, there's always, political gossip. We've had a big name announced for governor, and that's certainly a big name.
That LC superintendent, or who you got?
Yeah, and Stan Pulliam from Sandy, and anyway,
what a sterling bunch.
There's definitely a big name in there now, and one that's certainly been good to the city. So we will see how this all shakes out, and we're having those conversations now, and we will report when we know more. But when these big names get in, they tend to drive some other folks that were thinking about running out of those races, and we'll see how that plays out. So with that, that's it, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to kind of switch the discussion now to our legislative priorities. And again, our staff's really done a good job combing through these issues, coming up with legislative priorities and things that we want to focus on. And we had a lot of success last session. And but now it's time to start looking forward. And as we all know, where the real work gets done is in the interim. And so I'm really hopeful these lines get drawn, they can come to some kind of agreement, and we can really start working with our own delegation on Salem's priorities and continue to do great things for our city and our community.
Do you want us to? I had a few that I'd come up with, just a couple really, that I wanted to bring up just to see if they'd fly at all, if we could, because they're going to require some work. One is I really would be interested in seeing if we could talk with some of the leadership about pilot mental health facility here in Salem with some sort of streamlined licensing process that brings us, the county and the state together. This success after all these years up in Wilsonville, getting 60 beds kind of got me going on. There should be a lot of experience in place right now over at state, the health authority on kind of how this could be done, how it could be done better. But I really think if we could get a mental health facility at least piloted, if not going full bore here, I think that would help us. We have just enough, just absolutely, really mentally ill people on the streets right now that would really benefit from a more contained setting if we could offer it to them. But that's kind of what I was thinking, if we might be able to take this into them and see if we could talk to them about that. They were so receptive to our sobering center, to our navigation center. And this, we just really badly need a mental health center in conjunction with what the hospital does and things like that. But I just, that's one I'm curious about. I don't know if the council will be interested in spending time on that or not, but I think we could possibly package that up with the county and take a look at it.
Mr. Mayor, we definitely have mental health resources and services within our legislative policy statements already.
Yeah, I'm looking at
specifically, but now we can. Sounds like we with direction.
Like start defining what that looks like.
Get targeted. Okay.
Yeah, street talk is one thing. I'm talking about a facility for people in serious crisis that need some help. I don't know, Chris, you deal with this as our representative on homelessness. What do you think?
I apologize. I have barking dogs right now, but I think as long as we have an entity that might be prepared to operate it, because I'm not sure that there would be public money for that. I think
Right.
that definitely the need is there.
Yeah, I think, what I'm talking about is just beginning that process, getting ourselves a defined, what is it we're after? Would it be a public facility? Would it be a public-private facility? What would it look like? We've been able to kind of evolve models in our various locations that fit those locations and their service needs. And I'd really love to do one that's just really focused on this mental health crisis problem we see, the person really having a difficult time. And we know who they are. I mean, we see them often enough, and I think it would be helpful to have something to get them stabilized. And that's what I'm thinking of, is that kind of a facility.
You mentioned Wilsonville, Mr. Mayor. Is there a specific facility or?
Well, there was a private facility going in up there, and I read that I think it was a 60-bed facility. It had been under study, trying to get licensed for the last 5 or 6 years. And I read that they had gotten licensed. I talked with Kristen about it. And she's looking up at sort of the Wilsonville City Council, Clackamas County, whatever they've got, if they've done any studies on how did they get there from here? Where'd they find this? What is this? Because it must have required some sort of zoning action of some kind, some sort of city action of some kind. What do they have just on the record we could take a look at to just understand what they did there? Maybe talk with their economic development people or whomever brought them into the community. How'd they get them there? That kind of thing. So she'll have something, I think, in the near future just to help us kind of define what we'd be talking about.
That'd be great. I talked to my colleague from Wilsonville maybe 2-3 weeks ago, and I'll reach out to him as well.
He may know what happened there. He may have been involved. Yeah.
Great. I basically just had a list for legislative discussion and things coming up. Courtney, did you have a few items you wanted to point out, or we just having an open discussion today?
My goal, my hope, my expectation is that it's an open conversation, a brainstorming session where we can get some of these ideas that we can start working in preparation for interim and for the following session. So this is what I was hoping for, is some of the ideas that you would like us to be ready with or start preparing for a future legislative committee meeting and then a council meeting for adoption of priorities.
I'm just, as a broad topic, because I don't know where we are exactly, is Yaquina Hall and where we are on that and what's left to get done on that, to see if we should use the special session. There'll be a lot of people sitting around with nothing to do, whether we should use that as our opportunity to try to close the deal on that thing.
That it's set to close on May 28th, I think it is.
And
What's set to close?
The real estate transaction.
No, the money. Isn't there still some outstanding money out there?
We initially we were reporting that we'd closed that gap.
Okay.
And that was correct. However, the source of funding that was applied to the gap can't be used for our problem. And so we still have a short that we need to solve for.
It's about $1.5 million.
Did
Yeah. I understand it correctly?
Yeah.
Well, I would just put that on the table as something we could take and just use, that they're in town to talk and in session to talk to whoever we need to talk about to get that $1.5 million gap closed. If we're going to close in May and we still can't get the project done, that would be kind of unfortunate.
And I would just like to say, as the president of the Housing Authority Board, this is the first time I've heard that, and I'm not very happy about it.
Yeah.
Nor am I, Counselor. And you will remember that specifically you testified in front of that committee.
That's
Right.
right.
Because we had talked to DAS about that and about the project. So you look at our timeline, you know, I'm as frustrated as you are, because you look at the conversation and the timeline, and it's like, how did they not know exactly what funding we needed and when? So two things we're doing. One, we're frustrated with that. Two things we're doing. One, we're setting up that call, Mr. Mayor, with you and the director. Two, I'm trying to figure out, one, a conversation with the Senate president, but two, if we spend political capital in conversations with Steiner, Hayward, Rayfield, and Betsy Johnson, the co-chairs of Ways and Means, who could probably make something happen. But again, I'm weighing, you know, political capital over something that we've done everything the way that we were asked to do it and the way that was intended. And somehow this little tiny glitch got in there. Now, I'm hopeful that those conversations produce, hey, it's a $1.3 billion budget. We'll find that 1.5. We'll figure that out. Because that was part of the agreement between the agency and the city. So, and again, no fault of ours, but the agency delay that ended up increasing costs here. So, you know, we were all sitting around the table, what, a year and a half ago?
Yeah.
Mayor, director of DAS, myself, the Senate president, others. And when we heard that and the actual implementation of the funding, same reaction as you, Councilor Hoy, just a head scratcher.
Well, the thing, I think it would be very helpful as soon as we can figure this out, is get what we're going to do figured out, who we're going to talk to. I'd like to make sure we include Councilor Hoy in that. He is the president of the Housing Authority, and I'm really concerned that I didn't realize he didn't know about this. So I want to make sure that he's included in this, and particularly if we're going to go in and sit around the table, I want to make sure he's present, if that's okay with you, Chris. If you're, you know, if it works out, I didn't realize you didn't realize this was going on.
I had an update from staff yesterday on this topic, and this was not mentioned.
Yeah, I think people are having a hard time understanding what the hell happened. We are. I mean, I think that's what it just hasn't. It truly is not clear what happened. Somehow this got dropped, and it's just now coming to light that it's dropped, and trying to figure out who dropped it. Was it intentional? Was it an accident? Was it just was it an internal? The fiscal office dropped it, you know, and that'll happen every once in a while. They'll just let something slip through the cracks that they're not into, you know. We don't know always. So trying to get that figured out.
And we were in constant contact with the agency throughout the close of session. We were told everything was fine. Everything was fine. And not to make excuses, my colleague at the agency is on paternity leave. So I haven't really been able to reach out, you know, out of respect. I haven't reached out and tried to figure this out. We've been working with his folks and having those conversations, trying to get this ironed out. So yeah, it's come to the point where we're going to take these next two steps.
Okay.
And we will include Councilor Hoy on that, especially when we're reaching out with the Senate President's office.
Okay, very good.
And just so that I feel better, for everyone's awareness, this Yaquina Hall piece was a priority for several of our sessions. We're well within council direction to continue to pursue that funding of the gap. Even though we all thought it was funded, we're still going to keep after it and try to make sure that we can close that gap. So that's consistent with everything we've done.
Well, let's put it, the other part of this is, we know it's on the list. Let's put it at number one priority. We can't let this slip again. We need to get this done. As Chris pointed out, we're closing on this property and still haven't got the dough to do the job. So,
Mr. Mayor, I agree with that completely. And I'm sorry, I haven't gotten word back. I've got to go to my conference call.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know.
Anything you've got, Tom?
Pardon me? No, because I didn't know we were having this meeting because it never made it to my calendar.
Oh, God.
If I think of something, I'll send Courtney and Justin and you two an email. All right.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom.
I'm leaving the meeting. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm glad I could contribute to the extent that I did.
Me too. Thank you. Okay.
Are there other ideas, Mayor, on your list? And we can then move to ideas from Councilor Hoy?
Well, I've got a couple of money. I've been kind of looking at the Peace Plaza is now visible again. And I'd sure love to go talk with a couple of folks if they'd like to help us out with some work done on that Peace Plaza. That's in really sorry shape out there. The concrete is in terrible shape. We've got those child killing pillar things out there that we've developed over the years to just see if we could kill a kid. We haven't yet. But I'd like to see those removed or adjusted and then get that fountain going again if we possibly can. We're looking at if it could be, it would really offer a really nice center then again to the. I'm looking at this 50th anniversary coming up of the facility here at City Hall and thinking what would be a project that would really be have a positive impact and become a more focal and usable space for the public. So I was thinking maybe we could talk to some of our friends over there about helping us out on this. It's not going to be cheap, but it's also not one of the monster jobs we've been looking at, water or the Jerry Frank project or some of that. This will be a smaller ask. So I'm really interested in that. The other.
Before we move past that one, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Before we move past that one, I just wanted to mention that in the library renovation subcommittee, we have had similar conversations, and I know Peter is working on a plan, and so it might be good to check in with him.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, because we've been talking about things that they could do within our existing budget to head in that direction, but
okay,
probably
good.
wouldn't get us all the way, but at least there's been conversations to head in that direction.
Okay, good.
And I can follow up with Peter too, because whatever it is we pitch could certainly be seeded with whatever Peter's come up with.
Yeah.
And so we could be asking for a match essentially. And just in terms of timing, if everyone's aware, it's August 18th, 2022 that we're aiming for. That was the day that the Civic Center opened. The library opened a little earlier, but the August 18th, 2022 is the date that we're charging toward.
Oh, great.
And there's so many opportunities around the architecture, the art invitational, that's the anniversary of the art invitational as well, prehistory and some of the people who, and the families who were a part of all of that. So it's a really unique opportunity, and certainly we can see how far we can get on our own and then make the ask more defined for a gap. Phil.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, would you let him know I want to talk to him then about this and kind of understand what the committee is up to, just to get it into my head and see if
yes.
Okay,
Will
great.
do.
The other one, and I hate to I beat this thing to death over the years, as have other former mayors and councilors, that idea of a streetcar that runs between the Capitol Mall and the downtown, up and down, whether it's State or Chemeketa or whatever, setting up some sort of non-automotive connection to our downtown out of that Capitol Mall area. Just see if we could talk to the state about helping us out on that one. We're all looking for reductions in various kinds of fossil fuel uses. This might be one of those that we could work with the transit district, the state, and ourselves, even the county, to put something together. I still think that would be a great addition downtown. So I just bring it up. But I'd like to see the state help us pay for it.
And we certainly have ideas from years gone by that we can resurrect and pull together some proposal.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there really are. There are a lot of, we've even had a pilot. We've actually had it happen once. Okay, that's all I have. Chris, did you have anything?
So my thoughts are, I don't have any specific asks other than I just want to focus on homelessness and continuing to build out our services. I mean, we can't rest our laurels on the navigation center. We have to keep going. We have to keep pushing on more services. to really address that problem. So that's what I want to focus all my energy on.
Chris, one I didn't mention, I had on my list. We've got this old police station down here on the ground floor of City Hall, and we're talking about it having a role in kind of navigation for everybody, kind of services and others. I'm just wondering, looking at that as a kind of social city services center where people can, if I understand some of the design ideas here at City Hall for post kind of over the next few years, development of the site here, it's going to create a situation where that part of City Hall will always be open and other parts of City Hall won't be, is making that a more offering more service than just where do you pay your water bill, you know? And it's in a great spot.
We're actually just the idea is more focused around where the cafe is currently located.
Okay, what about that other one? That's where we'll pull in some of our like urban development or something. Is that?
Actually, there's just a lot of movement that could over the next couple of years, but ideally, eventually the court would move down towards where the police station is, have two smaller court facilities that would be more multi-purpose or other kinds of activities that the city might host. So there's still a lot in the works. We're doing a lot of planning and figuring out how all of those pieces flow.
Well, I hope in your mind as a group, you hold what Chris talked about, which is at the top of our list on everything we do is homelessness. I mean, that is where the public is. That's where I think most of us on council are, is that is everything has to kind of, it's our homeless lens on a lot of the things we're doing, just to make sure we've got that in mind and not missing any opportunities with either facilities or staffing or funding opportunities, any of that. So just mention that to follow up on Chris's comment. I think it's just right on the mark.
We've had some conversations too about whether or how we might be able to better partner with some of our state agencies, particularly around some of the friction that we were hearing in the community and seeing on ODOT adjacent properties and cleanups there. We've had some conversations about disposition of state property and whether there could be some additional flexibility for purposes of sheltering and those kinds of things. Is that also what you might be imagining in the scope of homelessness, not just dollars for services, but maybe more flexibility so that we could achieve that mission?
Absolutely. Coordination with the state and the county to achieve that. Absolutely.
Yeah. This is clearly something we can't solve alone, but we can certainly help drive the discussion at other levels of government that may not be having the same one we are.
I am also interested in totally changing gears here, but I noticed that Lieutenant Aguilar is not with us, it appears. But I did have some questions for her. Maybe Marcus, or I'm sorry, maybe somebody from the city attorney's office can answer. But about the recent legislation regarding protests, I'm concerned that maybe there's some work that needs to be done there, that maybe that new law went too far. And I don't know the detail. I'm just hearing bits and pieces about that. So I think that that's something that this group needs to be paying attention to in case there's some work that needs to be done there in order to better situate our police to respond to protests.
We can do the research and come back to you with that next time we group.
Great. I was told that Lieutenant Aguilar is up to speed on it. I was hoping she would be here to speak to it, but I don't see her. So
my understanding is the chiefs of police and some other groups are looking at this issue. It'd be helpful, I think, to hear what their, along with Lieutenant Aguilar and her impact on us. And I know she will bring this is what are other groups doing?
Yeah, definitely.
So we understand it. Sir.
Are there any other topics that you'd like us to explore in preparation for your next gathering?
Not for me.
Nothing I can think of. Yeah, I think having a real good understanding of what's going on with redistricting and how what that's really looking like hitting us as it develops will be really helpful. I'm really looking forward to hearing who we've got. See if we get additional people in our delegation. It'd be really helpful.
Excellent. If you don't mind, I'll just recap so that we're clear about what we'll be working on. Yaquina Hall, solving for the gap there will be our first priority. We're talking about exploring what it would take to get some sort of a pilot mental health facility here in Salem. Talking about what kind of match we may be seeking to spruce up the Civic Center facility, including Peace Plaza, in advance of an 50th anniversary celebration. Talking about the possibility of a streetcar that would better connect the Capitol Mall area with our downtown and what that might look like, what partners we might need to re-invite to the table. And then around homelessness, still looking for funding for critical services and considering city facilities, other partner facilities as opportunities for access to service and temporary or emergency sheltering. And
On
then,
that, before you move on that,
yes,
I thought the suggestion too that you mentioned is that cooperative relationship with ODOT on their facilities, making sure that we're included. And my understanding on that is there is a provision that allows Portland to do some work just because of their size. There was a population threshold. Is taking a look at that, if there's something we can do to get that kind of authority here in our jurisdiction, perhaps in cooperation with Eugene if they're interested, but cities, these two larger cities, and I don't know, may even go down to Medford and Ashland to sort of look for help on this thing, but getting a way to have some control over what's going on those, those facilities of theirs.
yes. And then that other coordination aspect with state and county and city facilities for use to kind of better serve our overarching sheltering and mission. Excellent. And then the last piece, not because it just the timing that it came up, the last piece was getting a handle on the latest protest legislation and what that means for Salem, and then an update on redistricting. So I think those are our marching orders. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
I didn't really have anything else. This is early days. And again, just preparing and putting the city in the best position forward for interim and then the session.
Yeah. Okay. Anything, Justin? Nope. Okay. All right, then we are adjourned.